All right, it's Bill here, and here's my thoughts on a 5-0 victory for the Toronto Maple Leafs over the Columbus Blue Jackets. This was a game that the Leafs needed to win, and they did win. And then a lot of contributions all over the lineup, except for the third line. I thought the second line played terrible, even though Nylander got 2 goals. But at the end of the day, it's a 5-0 victory. Much needed. Now a 4-point lead over the Tampa Bay Lightning. Is it 6 over? I should have probably checked that before. I think it's 6 over. 6 over Florida. And now Florida can actually be caught by Ottawa, which means the Leafs could win the division and still get the Florida Panthers. Welcome to being a Leaf fan. Going to the game, I thought the first period was bad. I thought Columbus was outplaying. They were desperate. The Leafs weren't there again. Morgan is really bad. And yeah, there was a couple just shifts. He was on the ice with Brandon Carlo. It never left our zone. When the second line was on the ice, it never left the zone. Marchenko and Fantilli and Jenner looked like the most dominant line ever. But the Leafs did get a break. Eric Werenski's pass went off Lawrence. Merzlikins' pass went off Rowinski. Then went to Pontus Holmberg over to Nick Robertson, who just scores goals. Now, there's going to be a lot of debate. How do you guys scores 2 goals tonight? Can you put him in a playoff lineup? The answer is no. You can't. You just can't. I get it. He scores goals. He got that benefit. But the guy in the defensive zone is atrocious. It's simply, can you maybe hide him on a fourth line? I thought the fourth line was supposed to be defensive. I know our third line was supposed to be get it Scotty to that. It was supposed to solve all world's problems, and it didn't. I get it. He scores goals. He does something. There's something there. And the 2 goals he scored tonight just gets the puck, puts it in the net. That's what he can't. He's got to just be defensive responsible. Just cover the point. That's all I ask of the guy. He can't do that. He's all over the place. He doesn't play his defensive position. I don't know what it is. There's going to be a big debate. You got Max Pacioretty probably looking at coming in the lineup. If there's an injury, you put in Robertson. But to me, you put Robertson over Lawton. It's not even close. But we know that's not going to happen because the Leafs worry about the optics of a horrible trade. But can you put him in? He scores goals. He just allows a lot of goals. And you're thinking in a playoff game where margins are so small and you're most likely going to get either Florida or Ottawa. Can you put up with that? I don't think he can. I really don't think he can. But anyways, Pontus Holmberg over to Robertson, who snipes it. And the Leafs are up 1-0. And then it turned. The second and third period, the Leafs were the better team. They decided to play some hockey. And when they decided to play hockey, let's be fair, Columbus stood with them in most of the second period. But the third period, well, you got Robertson's another goal. Horrible. Well, I don't even know what that line shift was. Robertson by himself on a 2-on-1 with Ty Domi. And again, just buries the puck. The kid can shoot. The kid can score. What's his shooting percentage in this game? Two shots, 2 goals. What are you gonna do? How much ice time? 10 minutes of ice time. He scores 2 goals. I know he brings something to the table. I get that piece of it, but it's just in the playoffs. Do you trust the kid in the defensive zone? I don't. Although he certainly wasn't the worst in the defensive zone tonight. Anyways, they made it 2-0, and then right off the bat, Nylander buries home the third goal, and at that point, the Leafs dominated, but Columbus quit. Columbus started thinking of the game in Ottawa on Sunday. They weren't thinking about anything else but the game in Ottawa on Sunday, and then it was field day for the Leafs. Nylander with a second goal, and then it looked like they're trying to feed Robertson, Nylander for a hat trick, but it ended up that Matthews got the 5th goal, and the Leafs are up or winning the game 5-0. They open up a 4-point lead. They got 2 games in Florida. They need to get at least 2 points out of that, at least. And then from there, the rest of the season, I think, is pretty decent. I know they got Montreal on Saturday in Toronto, I believe, right? So Toronto will get, they get Montreal at home, then Carolina on the road. Carolina game's going to be a tough one. And then they get, to finish off the season, the Buffalo Sabres and the Detroit Red Wings And at that point, I'm going to guess Buffalo and Detroit aren't going to be playing for much. Maybe Detroit will be. But basically, first place is in their hands. They get to take it. They played Columbus. Again, what I saw last couple Saturdays ago against Nashville didn't take place tonight. Pretty much an overall good game. I would say this, the second line of Janet, William Nylander, and Bobby McMahon was the worst player on the ice last night. He was by far the worst player on the ice. I don't know what the hell Bobby McMahon probably had a night, maybe a little bit too much of the Xbox, or maybe he had a couple too many pops, whatever it was. He was terrible. And defensively, really, and Carlo were a disaster. So what was happening? For some reason, I don't get this. You put your two worst or the worst combination on the second line again with Johnny T, William Nylander. I know William Nylander scored 2 goals. And yeah, Nylander did everything on those goals, but I mean, that second line was bad tonight. The third line. Yes, Scotty T. Rotten report. You're going to be surprised by the Scotty T. Rotten report. 0, 0, 0, 0. I think he had some shots on net. Yeah, 3. Hits, 0. Penalty minutes, 2. So you did change that up, but you got 2 penalty minutes tonight. This guy is atrocious. At no point during this game did he look like he was involved at all. He's best friends with Boone Jenner. I don't know what they're best friends. Well, that was a hell. Well, surprised we don't get Boone Jenner. He's an Oshawa general. We should probably go get him too. Lacrosse check in the back, whatever that was. Boone Jenner sold that like crazy. But Scotty Rotten adds absolutely nothing to this lineup. And matter of fact, he's a detriment. You're basically playing shorthanded when this guy's on the ice. Oh, Bill, give him a lot of games. He'll figure it out. He'll get the system. What are we in? 13, 14 games in? The guy sucks. First, we're going to be talking about this trade for a while, depending on who Philly picks in the first round. This trade is disgustingly bad. Like, this is fireable offense. You think John Ferguson Jr. made some bad trades. Rask for Raycroft really takes the cake. You think Brian Burke makes some bad trades. You know, Kessel for what turns into Sagan and Hamilton. I got it all. This is Grabankin in a first-round pick for a guy who shouldn't even be in the Leafs lineup. Honestly, he should. Pax Purdy comes in. Lawton's the guy who should be sitting down because he offers nothing. Holmberg at least offers, he draws penalties. What does Scotty Rotten offer anybody? And Brandon Carlo looked like Corey Cross again tonight. Now, granted, Brandon Carlo's playing Morgan. Really? Scotty Rotten. Wow. I might call him Scotty Rotten Clarkson. At least with Clarkson, it was a free agent signing. We gave up players to get this piece of garbage. Woo! That's a tough one to swallow. Anyways, at the end of the day, your Scotty Rotten report. Lots of zeros. First round pick for... Oh, God. Anyways, I'd also like to mention yesterday I was at my parents' house. My mom's birthday is on Sunday. Happy birthday, Mom. And we're talking about how I have become a negative Leaf fan. I'm a pessimistic Leaf fan. Do you think the team's going to be good? The team is better than what they were last year because I love 4 defensemen. I love the 2 goalies. We all know what's going to happen in the playoffs. Matthews is going to be okay. He ain't going to be great. He ain't going to be bad. He's going to be okay. Mitchie Boitano's going to go hide in the corner like he always does. Nylander's going to be the best of the 4 if he can get over his headaches. And friggin' Johnny T is going to be destroyed by either Braden Point, Sam Bennett, or Tim Stützle. That's what's going to happen in the playoffs. There's a history. So we're talking about, was I always pessimistic? You'd be surprised, people. The answer is no. I wasn't a pessimistic. In 92, 93, now I happen to be born in 77. So yes, I do remember the Leafs in 83, 84. I've got the memories of Momesso blasting it by Bester. But I've got the Ken Reggett big saves. I've got the Leafs, playoff victories that they grab from nowhere. I remember, the Rick Vibes, the Wendell Click. I got it all. But really, the first time the Leafs really did have a run was 92, 93. The minute they made the Doug Gilmour trade, you are looking at one of the most optimistic people I loved every Leaf player. I loved the Peter Zezel, Bill Berg, Mark Osborne line. The minute they went on the ice, I got excited. Gilmore, excited. Andrechuk, the tree, popping it in the top of the net. Nick Borshevsky playing without an orbital bone in his spleen. When they beat Detroit, when they beat St. Louis, and they went to 7 against the Kings, I thought for sure they were going to win the Cup, and I was the most optimistic. You couldn't tell me anyone on the Leafs was a bad player. You couldn't. And then 93, 94. I was all over them again, pretty much the same team. And then Kirk McLean stands on his head and Pavel Bure goes nuts. And the Leafs lose to the Vancouver Canucks in the semifinal. Then they made the trade. They made the trade for Matt Sundin. Wendell Clark, who I personally think is, at the time, my idol. Wendell Clark is the best. I know he's not the best NHL player, but as a fan, he was my favorite player. So yes, that's going to dig a little. That's going to hurt a little bit. Was it a bad trade? No, it wasn't. I think Matt Sundin is we're all going to disagree on this, I guess. I think Matt Sundin is one of the most overrated NHL players to ever play. How does a guy, he's like Joe Thornton. He reminds me of Joe Thornton. You score a lot of points, you do nothing. There's no physical to your game. You're not, Billy's a big leader. Yeah, okay. Anyways, so that's your first dig. Little stab there. But I still was optimistic. What was it, 98, 99? I think it was 98, 99. I probably should have had this all prepared. I was just talking with my parents today, and I thought, let's bring this up to everyone so you can get a sense of why I just look at data and I look at history and I know what I've gone through as a Leaf fan. You Leaf fan, I'm not just going through it. You're going through it too. So if you still can go through what we've gone through and you have optimistic, you have no doubt that they're going to win the Stanley Cup, I would love your Kool-Aid. Just give that Kool-Aid over, whatever pills you're taking. I'm taking some pills now, but you give me the pills that you're taking, I would love it. I would love it. Let me see what I think it was in the 98, 99. It was when they were playing Buffalo. I'm just going to take a look. I should have had that prepared. Anyways, and this is when the Leafs got to they had Stumpy Thomas, and they replaced that Peter Zezel, Billy Berg, the hardest working guy in show business, Billy Berg, and Mark Osborne, with Gary Volk, Sergei Berezan, the water bug, and Gary Volk became the hardest working guy in show business, and then Igor Korolev. I love that line. I love the Gary Volk goal against Pittsburgh in overtime. I loved it. I was the most optimistic. I thought they were going to win. 98, 99. Here's what happened in I think it was 1998, 99. They're playing the Buffalo Sabres in the semifinals. And you heard this. Dominic Hasek will not be starting the first game. I went through the roof. I was optimistic. I thought they were going to take it over. And I believe the goalie was Dwayne Rollison, if I'm not mistaken, who came in and just became Dominic Hasek Jr. And the Leafs lost in 5 to the Buffalo Sabres. I think the next one, if I'm not mistaken, again, I should be way more prepared than this, eh? It was the 2002 Stanley Cups, I think, when the Leafs played the Carolina Panthers in the semifinals. I was optimistic. You'd be surprised I was optimistic. Now you're putting me in I thought the Leafs were going to win. That year, all the injuries happened. You had, who cares about me, idiot, being out? And they looked like they were going to be gold. They Carolina, Alan McCauley, Gary Roberts, those two players just decided they were going to win. Alan McCauley and Gary Roberts said, we're going to win. I don't care if Sundin's out. I don't care if Domi's out. And I forget who else was out. It might have been, I know Domi was one of them. And all of a sudden, they brought all 3 of these guys back in the game. And you're thinking, okay, the Leafs are hanging with Carolina. We got 3 players back. And they lost. And they had this thing now of losing in overtime in Game 6 at home. They did it, Roenick. And this starts happening. And it starts happening. And then the Leafs don't make the playoffs for, 9 years? So optimistic Bill turned into, as you know me today, a realist. I'm not pessimist. I'm not optimist. I'm not an idiot. I don't blindly think everything's going to happen. I know what's going. I've seen the players. Here's things that have taken me down. The Max's dad, me idiot, elbowing Scott Niedermayer in a playoff round, and the Jersey Devils saying that's enough. Waking up Scott Stevens, who was sleeping. That put a dent in me. The Kerry Fraser, obviously, miss on Wayne Gretzky. Or, Gretzky on Gilmore. Was it... And by the way, in that game, you'll notice Glenn Anderson got a boarding call before the overtime. They called that one. Didn't call that one. That's a dagger. The 2013-14 or whatever, when they lost, being up 4-1 against the Boston Bruins. That hurts. But then, the draft, what was it, 2016 draft or 2017? I can't even. Whenever they got Austin Matthews, I became optimistic. There's a picture that I have of me with 2 beer cans. I was double fisting when they won the lottery, and you knew Austin Matthews was there. I was optimistic. That first game, 4 goals. Marner comes in the second game, scores. You're like, what's going on? You didn't expect him to make the playoffs. Then you had Brian Boyle behind the net to cap it in. Taps it in overtime against the Capitals. They lose in overtime in Game 6. I was optimistic. This team took on. Now, there was something in that I'll show you or get to you in just a sec, which made me more of a pessimistic fan. And then they lose to the Bruins. They take Shanaplan, throw it down the garbage by signing Johnny T instead of a defenseman. And then they lose to Montreal and Columbus first. And then Montreal up 3-1. And Galchenyuk does the spinorama. And Travis Dermott, the next game, does a spinorama that leads to breakaways that go in the net. And Game 7, they didn't show up. They were hiding. In the Washington series, our worst defenseman by far, the man who should have never hit the ice, was named Martin Marincin. And he was the one that cost the overtime goal by Marcus Johansson, because Martin Marincin was he looks a lot like Brandon Carlo. Which proved your weakest link. Martin Marincin was the weakest link. He cost. This is what I'm talking about. This is why I've seen the story way too many times. So yes, you'd be surprised. Young BS over here used to be an optimist when it came to the Leafs. I would tell you why the Leafs were going to win. I hope more than anything, I want to be proven wrong. I want to eat crow. I will take my sock. If they win, I will take my sock off of my foot and I'll shove it right down my mouth. If Scotty Lawton gets the OT winner, I will go over and I'll apologize for everything I've said about Scotty Too Rotten. I'm just giving you my analysis. And my analysis is we got a better defense. We have goalies. There's a hope. There's hope. So I'm not sitting here saying it won't happen. There is hope. The hope is the 2 goalies, our 4 good defensemen. Maybe this time Mitchie doesn't disappear. Maybe this time Matthews dominates instead of be okay. I would love it. I would love it. I'm just going to say, if I had $50 and I were betting who's going to win the Stanley Cup, I'm sorry, Leaf fans. I'm not betting on the Leafs. I hope you enjoyed my little history rant. Anyways, Tuesday, Wednesday, Florida, Tampa Bay. Big games. Try to get first, get some home ice advantage, get that hope going, get the heart pumping with a little bit of hope. Just hopefully they don't crush it when it's done. All right, I'll talk to you Tuesday. Cheers.